realist. This is the Bruce Montalvo Show. Hello, welcome back to the Bruce Montalvo program. We'll be joined by stand-up comic and longtime American Freedom Fighter press correspondent Arthur M. in a few moments. But as of right now, I want to get into the Dog and Pony Show Act, that is the Democratic National Convention. Now, the latest puppet for the Democrats being thrown on stage at the convention is Julian Castro. This San Antonio Democrat has already deceived the American citizenry when his twin brother took his place at a city event because he was running late. This was known as the Riverwalk scandal. Now, this supposed rising star for the Democrats stated that he is a rugged individual. Texas believes in the rugged individual. Now, this is completely contradictory to what the Democrats believe in. Now he is being compared to Obama. John Leguizamo, a famous actor, starred roles like Ice Age and epic thrillers like Carlito's Way. He was there and he stated that Julian Castro is going to be the next president, and he was there fully supporting the Obama administration and their attempts to be reelected. Now, I want to know how much they paid Benny Blanco from the Bronx to endorse these sick socialists. Now, when it was Julian Castro's turn to speak at the convention, he basically lied to the American citizenry, lied to the Latinos who he was addressing, the Hispanic Americans in this country. He lied regarding Obama's deportation policies, which have been enforced on a higher level than that of Aleister Crowley's grandson, the former president of the United States, George W. Bush. Now, he basically brainwashed everybody. You see celebrities like John Leguizamo there stating that he could be our next president. You see all these men, Bill Richardson, Marco Rubio, Antonio Villaraigosa, all these front men for this socialist takeover of America. Now, for the first time on this broadcast, I would like to address my fellow Hispanic Americans and Latinos in general who may listen to this show who are bilingual. I'm gonna say this in Spanish. Si de verdad aman a la libertad, consideran un voto para el ex-gobernador de Nuevo Mexico, Gary Johnson. Now, what I just stated was that if you truly love liberty, you will consider a vote for former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. Now, truly, moving forward, Obama and Romney have been in the public eye for about 8 years now. Obama more so than Romney, but they're being presented at these conventions to the sheeple as fresh and new. These failed politicians with their failed policies, like Bill Clinton, whom gave up the docks of Long Beach, California, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chinese military, and our national parks to the UN as collateral for the Chinese debt, are being presented as heroes and mentors. And the sheeple just keep chanting 4 more years, 4 more years, continually. Really, this is something out of Orwell's book, 1984. I am now getting word that we will now speak with American Freedom Fighter Press correspondent Arthur M. Hello, Arthur. Thank you for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. great to be here.
Now, there were over 35,000 people chanting 4 more years, referring to Barack Obama getting elected for a second term. To me, it was something out of an Orwellian novel.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think 1984 is basically an instructional guide for these people. What can I say? People love their enslavement. They give in to this mass propaganda, and I mean, I don't know if it comes out of them deciding to go for the lesser of two evils, or really what people's delusion is. But I mean, if you look at the whole thing, really, with Barack Obama becoming president and showing everyone exactly what he really was and his true colors, you can see that that should have been the thing that woke people up. That should have been the time where people said this two-party system is really just a one-party system. There's basically they're two wings of the same bird. And I think that a lot of people did wake up when they seen that he was basically working for the same power establishment, the power brokers behind Bush. And so I think a lot of people did finally get out of that whole false paradigm of of this whole fake Democrat Republican system that we have. But in reality, the majority of people still give in, and they still accept this idea, this false idea of this paradigm. And people are chanting four more years. They're chanting 4 more years because what? Because why? They want more wars. They want no more civil rights. They want more Wall Street. They want more phony rhetoric. It's not hope, it's delusion. It's not change, it's the furthering of the same domestic and foreign policies that we've had from the Bush years. It's all the same, and people love their enslavement. It's a Stockholm syndrome that America's under.
Now, what do we have to do to get the people to realize that Obama jumps when Wall Street tells him to jump? He did not close down Guantanamo Bay as he promised. He has deported more Latinos than any existing president ever. He signed the treasonous National Defense Authorization Act, along with passing the Affordable Health Care Act, which is socialist takeover of the healthcare industry, and backs the criminal organization ATF in their recent gun walking scandal, in which Border Patrol agent Brian Terry lost his life. He even has notorious drug lords thanking him. You have El Chapo Guzman thanking him for continuing the war on drugs, which we all know is a war against the American people.
You mentioned a lot of great points. I'll just start from the top. Wall Street. All right, let's talk about that. There's no one in jail that should be in jail. That Wall Street, those cronies, those people basically taking over our government. They're taking over anything, all the policies. It's money in politics, and that is the problem. And that is the problem that so many people are pointing to. And if we can focus in on this issue, this central issue, and make it the bottom line, if nothing else, we can just focus on money in politics and getting money out of politics, then we can basically accomplish something that's worthwhile. I think that more and more people will continue into the Occupy movement, and will wake up to the Federal Reserve, and they'll wake up to the real issues that are going on in our government, in this system. Wall Street does need to be put in jail, and I think the fact that there's no one in jail reflects on Obama, reflects on the structure of our government, and that should wake people up to the reality of the real controllers behind the scenes, the man behind the man. Everything that's going on, it doesn't have anything to do necessarily even with Obama in some instances. A lot of times he is just a puppet, a distraction, and we need to focus on the structure, the bigger structure of government, and getting money out of politics. Moving on to what you were saying about the NDAA and the Patriot Act. Clearly, when Obama was running in 2007 as a candidate, he was talking about ending the Patriot Act and ending ending wiretapping and ending spying on protesters. But where is that now? Where is that today? With the reinstituting of the NDAA, we can see the true colors of Obama. We can see what this man, and again, it's pressured on him from the power system that he basically scratches their back, they scratch his back. It's a whole systemic problem. It's corporations, it's everyone that seems to gain. Every time there's a bill passed, every time a law is put into effect, a whole lucrative, greedy fungus grows around it. A whole system basically is leeching off of that bill. And that's why they have these things. NDAA is about control. They're posturing up for more civil unrest, and they're getting ready, and they know that's why they have the HR 347. That makes protesting a federal offense. This is insanity. This is ridiculous. We're getting into things that if you were to look back and reflect on history and the pattern that happened to so many open societies turning into a closed society, we can see the same pattern unfolding in America. America is becoming a closed system. Obama said he'd close Guantanamo, and it's still open. I don't know what it will take for people to wake up to how or who Obama really is. I mean, I think if he were to just rip off his face and it would be Dick Cheney the whole time, I think even then people would make excuses as to why that's everything he's doing is okay, why that's okay. Well, so I mean, honestly, people are in this delusion. They're under this heavy propaganda. They love their enslavement. Going back to what I said before, I don't know what it'll take for people to realize that this two-party system is really they're both establishment parties. They're both establishment parties. These two-party systems are just under the same establishment. Yeah, I get that Romney would have been worse in some cases, or maybe not. I mean, it's debate. The fact that that's debatable, the fact that war is inevitable in both cases, the fact that they're both heading in the same direction in regards to the major policies, the major foreign and domestic policies, it's the same. I mean, Carroll Quigley talked about all this stuff before. That's Clinton's mentor. He writes about it and talks about how it's really a one-party system, that you have to be a fool. You're an average Joe when you subscribe to the idea that we have a two-party system that actually gives us the freedom to choose between one puppet from another. It's the same thing. We're going down the same yellow brick road, and we're going to see the man behind the curtains, and we need to expose this for really what it is. Okay, moving on to the whole fiasco with the ATF and everything that happened there. I really want to get into, because I mean, it was a tragedy. It was a real tragedy what happened to Brian Terry. I feel for his family. He was a Border Patrol agent that ended up being on the wrong end of a botched operation, Fast and Furious. And it was people go, this was a botched operation. But, it really wasn't a botched operation. It was meant to be what it was. It was giving guns to these criminals, these violent gang members. That was the intention. It wasn't botched. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't something that they were. So a lot of people were surprised, but not the people at top, not the people who knew what they were doing. They're giving guns because we run the gun trade. The CIA runs the drug trade. They run all the major exports that are the illegal exports. And that's the real meat and potatoes of this situation, is that the CIA gets caught all the time, and it gets put out there, and they've been caught numerous times, I should say, running the drug trade. And I mean, we have Marines in Afghanistan guarding the poppy fields. I mean, we don't have that. I mean, where do you think it comes from? The CIA does the same thing they do in Middle East as they do in Mexico, as they do in other parts of the world, and they bring the drugs in. And this is a result. Now they're just doing it brazenly. Now they're just doing it open. Now they just don't care. They're just doing it in the open, and they say that it was a botched operation. It wasn't a botched operation. It was only botched because they got caught, but really they know what they're doing. They're giving guns because they're running the major cartels. It's major cartels fighting with the smaller cartels to who's going to control the drug trade. And Eric Holder should resign and he got away scot-free because he knows particular people in that sect of government, that particular sect of government, that smooth things over, grease some wheels, and they get the guy out clean as clean as a whistle, I guess, as some would say. I truly believe that he knew. There's enough evidence to suggest that he had emails and he had been briefed a year before. He testified before Congress on the issue. And yet again, it shows the corruption in our system, that people who are found guilty are not put away into prison. So that's my take on the whole issue with what happened with the quote unquote botched operation with the Fast and Furious, and what happened with Brian Terry.
Now, the theme at the DNC is he doesn't get it. Of course, referring to Romney. But Art, we know that they both don't get it. The Fed is already talking about another round of stimulus. I believe they already passed QE3. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really their stimulus. It's not our stimulus. This QE3, what it does is it just makes the wealthy wealthier. It's unelected bankers that have zero allegiance to America. They are the ones that are put in control of our economy. This is what's driving our economy into the ground. It's what's driving America into the ground. So it's, quantitative easing, that thing that makes no sense, and the mainstream media is already praising Bernanke for this idea, like an evangelical church praising the return of their Messiah. Like, that's really the reaction they're trying to give to this guy for his idea of pumping $40 billion a month into our financial system. So where does that money go? Where have we seen it gone? It's gone into the stock market, which makes the wealthy wealthier, and then it goes into the banks, which we're supposed to give it to the people to help us recover, but that doesn't happen. The Fed stepped in. It says give it to us because then you could make money in interest without any risk. So this is what we see happening. Now, what's going on? What does this do? It basically drives up the prices of financial assets. And who reaps the benefits off of this? The wealthy. That's no big surprise here. The wealthy get wealthier from this happening. So I'm not surprised seeing QE3. It's pretty brazen. In a way, I can see how some people can be surprised because, how you see somebody go so far and do something so horrendous as what we've already gone through with quantitative easing, and you think there's no way they can continue to do this kind of fiasco in front of the American people, and yet it continues. And this time it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse because now it's indefinite. Now a crash that was supposed to be an awful crash is now going to be a much more devastating crash, and everything is hitting the fan with QE3.
That's exactly right, Art. I mean, it's the classic example of pressure from above and below. These oligarchical psychopaths create the problem, and they themselves have the solution. Now we're going to go ahead and pause for a moment and go to a brief commercial break. We'll be back with more from Arthur M. here on the Bruce Montalvo Show. If you have any questions regarding the economic crisis, government cover-ups, Big Brother, or the New World Order, be sure to contact us at the Bruce Montalvo Show at gmail.com.
The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people, and so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
Welcome back to the Bruce Montalvo program. I'm glad to be joined by my friend, stand-up comic, and longtime American freedom fighter press correspondent, Arthur M. Now, Arthur, as you know, I was recently in Austin, Texas. I filmed an investigative report on the Frost Bank Tower in downtown Austin, Texas, and its eerie resemblance to the Old Testament's deity, Moloch.
Yeah, actually, I thought it was a pretty entertaining piece. The whole Pee Wee Herman touch really just made it perfect. I mean, the idea that they would do something like that in the open, and the way you covered it was pretty perfect. I thought it was really eerie too, and I hope more people will be able to see what you put out there and get informed about it.
Now, while in Austin, I also was informed of the fact that the Austin Police Department had successfully infiltrated the Occupy Wall Street movement of Austin, Texas. Now, of course, Art, we've seen this before. We covered it when Occupy Wall Street Los Angeles was being evicted from downtown and City Hall. They, too, had been infiltrated by LAPD.
Yeah, this is pretty typical. It's something you see a lot of police departments doing to sort of stifle any kind of dissent. They'll dress up like a protester and they'll come in, and basically I think the best thing we can do to defend ourselves is to carry cameras, carry video cameras, carry any kind of recording device, as so it doesn't come down to your word versus their word. You can catch these people, you can put it on YouTube, you can show people, because people still think that's a myth, or that can't happen, that people, the police departments really wouldn't do that, and that's crazy. They think it's, they think you've been watching too many movies, too many spy movies, but this is reality. This is really what they do. This is their MO. They infiltrate, and then they create problems, and that's the biggest issue we have to watch out for. Is they're provoking the police, them dressing like protesters, and then provoking a problem as to get the police, as to get those riot gear cops into an actual conflict with the mass amount of protesters. That's what they want to do, and that's what we keep seeing. So I encourage more people to carry recording devices, and it was great the way that you covered it.
Now I'd like to move forward with my next topic, and that is the topic of World War III being around the corner, possibly. I recently called in to Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero show that is broadcasted out of Portland, appears on KLBJ News Radio 590 AM Austin. Now, I called in, I spoke with Clyde regarding Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel ordering the Obama administration to prepare for his strike against Iran. Now, Netanyahu is hell-bent on attacking Iran and believes that a nation that can't even provide gasoline for its citizen is capable of wielding nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. I have to say that, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's been pushing for military action from the U.S. into Iran for years. And a big myth about this is that he has the Israeli people in mind, but in reality, he's only moving for the interests, he's only pushing for this for the interests of his Wall Street London cronies. I mean, he's backed by these financiers, and this is really his only motivation. I mean, another point is that Israel and the U.S. admit in their own policy papers that Iran holds no threat to their security. On the contrary, it holds a threat to their hegemony, their power. So in this case, you can see what the real motive is. If you look at a 156-page report by the corporate-funded Brookings Institute, which is called Which Path to Persia, it was written in 2009, and this basically lays out the fact that Iran holds no security threat to Western powers or Israel, but holds a threat to their control, holds a threat to their control in the Middle East, holds a threat to their overall hegemony in the world. So this is clearly a motivation why we see Netanyahu trying to make claims that we should move into Iran and invade. Another point is that the U.S. and Israel for years have already been conducting covert operations, covert war in Iran. They continually back terrorist organizations, such as, I hope I don't butcher this too much, but the Mujahideen-e-Khalik, or for sake of discussion, I'll just call it the MEK. Now, the relationship of the MEK and the U.S. and Israel is well documented in a series of Western media reports, government testimonies, and U.S. foreign policy papers. They carry out covert assassinations in Iran, and this is well documented. I can go on and mention Operation Ajax if you want to take a history lesson and look in 1953, where the U.S. and Britain overthrew the democratically nationalist prime minister, the democratically elected nationalist prime minister Mohammad Mossadegh. So, I mean, we can see that America and Israel have blood on their hands. They have been caught red-handed numerous times in the same endeavors. Israel does not, we need to get it straight, that Israel, the government of Israel, I should say, Netanyahu, or any prime minister that gets put in place that I've seen so far has not represented the people of Israel, but they represent Wall Street and London hegemony. They hold the biggest threat. The Israeli government holds the biggest threat to Israeli people. They hold the biggest threat to U.S. people. They hold the biggest threat to people all over. They are the ones that want to cause war and create the problem. It's problem, reaction, solution. They've made the Muslim Brotherhood. They've made Hamas. They've created Al-Qaeda. They're the ones that constantly perpetuate war. And why? Because it's all about their corporate financier interests in Wall Street and London and building up military arms, and all about Middle East hegemony, but in the big picture, it's global hegemony that they want. It's global dominance, global power, and this is the motivation that is coming out of Netanyahu. This is why you see him do everything he's doing to get the U.S. to invade into Iran.
So true, Art. So very true. Now, moving forward with our broadcast, I recently spoke with Clyde Lewis of Ground Zero. It's a conspiracy-based talk show out of Portland. It is broadcasted via KLBJ News Radio 590, Austin, Texas. Now, I spoke with him regarding the esoteric website, IlluminatiOrder.info. Now, you and I spoke about this earlier, Art. This website, there seems to be thousands of these websites, but to me, it does seem rather strange. There are some strange anomalies, some kind of hair-raising, little scary, premonitions when you see this website. It's basically a countdown calendar.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The Illuminati have so much to do with symbolism, because symbolism is the best way to reveal and conceal a message. That's what symbolism is to these people. So, I mean, yeah, I looked at the website. I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought that there were some kind of eerie traits to it, but we seen what happened with it. It basically fizzled out. Nothing happened on September 9th, 2012, the date that it was set to end. And that's typical with these type of websites. They kind of just, sends a buzz through the whole movement, and people look at it, and it's sort of sensational. But really, you got to be careful. We all got to be careful how much time we give to these type of websites, because they're everywhere. The internet is just full of all kinds of people vying for attention and trying to get their voice heard, and just trying to put just random things out there. So you have to be careful about the information you're lending yourself to, the amount of what you're investing, because there's so much information out there to break down, that you have things like this where you pass by it, you might find it interesting, but if you don't come to some type of diet according to your information, an information diet, then you're kind of just like with real food. You all of a sudden you start getting all this junk information inside of you, and now you're really not up to date with anything. You're overwhelmed, and that's why a lot of people get that what's called paralysis by analysis. There's just so much, and if we give time to everything, we'll never get anything done. So those kind of websites, if something comes of them that's significant, then that's when I feel more about trying to look into them more and talk about it and get into it. With things like this, I think it's a great example of one of those things that we need to be careful of. This website is a great example of one of those type of websites that we just need to make sure that we don't spend too much time, paying attention to unless something did happen. I mean, there is the Illuminati card games and things like that that are eerie. There's things out there that we keep in mind, that we postpone judgment on until something comes of them. And even then, that's debatable. People try to draw parallels between that and reality, and there are some kind of eerie parallels. I agree. But again, I only move forward on things that I can back up with documentation, that I can back up with, actual empirical facts. And that's what I think gives you more credit in front of people. That's when you bring real things, then you kind of break the mold of what they thought of conspiracy theorists. If you're telling them about something completely bizarre, then that has that you feel but may not be able to back up, then you're kind of feeding into that fuel that they have to dismiss actual conspiracies like 9/11, like the Federal Reserve, like the New World Order. So that's why I try to do my best to stay with what I can prove. And that's why I think it's a good thing that we talk about this too, because again, it's a great example of those type of things, those websites and things like that are maybe a waste of time. Maybe, hey, look at, apparently people got scared and nothing came of it. So proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding, and you can see how this type of thing just wastes people's time. And it's a great example, though. I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because it's that typification of the type of websites that are out there that could really get people caught up in the sort of wrong type of the wrong type of information.
Absolutely, Art. I mean, we have to do our best to stay away from detrimental information that eventually will cause information overload, right? I mean, there's just so much out there, and there's so much that we should be focusing on. Now, that does it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Bruce Montalvo.
I'm Arthur M.
And again, we remind you that the freedom of the press is our right and our responsibility.